doing, Kman? Yes, I'm mountain climbing. Why do mountain climbers climb mountains? And the answer is because they're there. And I'm in the South Island of New Zealand, surrounded by mountains. I'm in this beautiful gorge at the moment, surrounded by mountains and the beautiful river going down the middle. And that's the topic of today, mountain climbers. And you can hear a bit of traffic going through the gorge. A very common exercise that has now become popular in the fitness profession. Come on, let's go and do mountain climbers. And everyone gets down on the ground and they start doing the mountain climbing motion. And yes, it can be quite stressful and hard to do. So let's have a look at this exercise from an anatomical point of view to see if it backs up its reputation, if you can say. Is there a bang for the buck? So when you look at any exercise, there's a few things that you could go through, some points, some questions to ask to see if that is the safest exercise, the most effective, the most efficient, the most beneficial, and a great exercise that you can do for the long term. So these are all some great questions to ask yourself. So the points are, the first point is, what is the projected or the acclaimed, you could say, benefit exercise? What are you doing it for? So that's number one. What is your goal? And does that exercise match the goal? Do they use, if you look at those two movements or those two, the goal and the exercise, does one as a reflection of the other? Does one achieve the other? And that's a good common sense question before we get into the anatomy of it. The next question asked is the exercise safe? Because yes, some exercises can be effective, but if they're not safe, you're not going to be able to use them for the long term because you're going to become injured, and when you're injured you can't do any exercise. The next question to ask is the exercise functional? Is it functional? Does it relate to daily life activities or the desired sport outcome? Is it functional? Is it specific from an anatomical and a physiological point of view to the goal of the person? The next one is it beneficial? Do you get a physiological and anatomical benefit from the exercise? Does it work, basically? And the next question is probably the most important question, if you get through the first ones, is there a better way to do it? Is there a better solution? Is there a better exercise that's going to give you bigger bang for your buck, better benefits in a more safer, functional way? So let's have a look at, yes, the mountain climber, because that's what we hear, that's what we do down here in the South Island. Now, I'm not a mountain climber, but there are a lot of mountain climbers down here, and they climb up the ridges, and yeah, I think they go into the indoor training to prepare, and they get up on the cliffs. So, but what I am an elite international level sports person, so I do understand exercise and training and sport, and I'm also a sports biomechanist, so I do have a good background in that particular field. So if you have those two, you can pretty much analyse anything. However, I'm going to get you to analyse the exercise based on your current knowledge and understanding a bit about anatomy. Yes. So, first question is, what is the goal of the exercise? What are you trying to achieve? So, if you're a mountain climber and you say, let's do the mountain climbing exercise, you go, okay, well that makes sense. That has the same name anyway. However, last time I looked at mountain climbers, they sort of climbed up mountains. They sort of went up. It was quite a steep incline where you actually had to pull yourself up. Well, if you look at the mountain climb exercise that people do in gyms and boot camps and personal training studios and so on, it's quite odd because they actually go to the floor. So maybe we should call them floor climbing exercises, or rather than a mountain climb exercise, a plane climbing exercise. So first of all, when I look at that exercise just purely from a common sense point of view, it sort of doesn't look right to me. Get on the ground and start to throw your knees up to the sides of your arms and back and forth, back and forth. So first of all, to me anyway, it doesn't satisfy the common sense rules. Does it look like is going to give me a benefit in terms of mountain climbing. Well, of course not. Well, sometimes people want to do it because they want to get strong. If you're doing it for strength, that doesn't make a lot of sense either, because we know that from an anatomical or physiological point of view, it's more of a cardiovascular endurance type or a lactate type exercise, so it's not going to be for strength. Is it a cardiovascular exercise? Well, it's not really sort of a cardiovascular exercise. It's sort of, you know, sort of somewhere in between a cardiovascular exercise, a strength exercise, an endurance exercise, and a mobility exercise, I suppose, and maybe a sporting exercise. But what I do know is that when it comes to exercise, you can't have them all. You can't have strength and cardiovascular and endurance and agility and flexibility, because they're all different energy systems. They all depend on different energy systems and different levels of intensity. That's like me saying, look, all at one, I want to walk in one direction that has me north, south, east and west all at one time. Well, you're pretty much going to go nowhere. So you're trying to get everything in one thing, but you really get a lot of nothing. So from a common sense point of view, if your goal is cardiovascular fitness or energy expending, you might say there might be a better exercise. If it's strength, you might say there's a better exercise. If you want to climb mountains, well, common sense, it might be a better position rather than being on the floor. Maybe you should be going upright. So from the question one, the goal, what is the goal, and does that exercise match into the goal? Unless your goal is to be on the ground doing that exercise, where you're going into the World Mountain Climbing Championships, which you're on the floor, then it may not be suitable to you. The next question is it safe? Now, safety is something which can be acute, means you injure yourself because the intensity or the biomechanics of the exercise is so stressful that it injures you straight away, but it also can be accumulative, because a lot of injuries these days are repetitive strain injuries, where you do a movement in the wrong way or with the wrong stress. You might be causing shearing stress or rotational stress or biomechanically incorrect, but over a period of time, you know, it will wear out the joint or wear out some part of the body that will, you know, stop you or injure you with a acute, initially maybe a chronic injury. So let's have a look at the mountain climb exercise from a biomechanical and a safety point of view. First of all, you're on the ground, your weight's on your shoulder. Now, there's nothing wrong with your weights on your shoulder, because we do push-ups that way in a controlled way. Now, me personally, a man of vintage, yes, I am past the mid-50s and fast approaching the 60s, but I'm still a competitive international level martial artist, and I compete on the world stage, so I'm not sort of the average person who's out of shape with who has injuries or diabetes or coronary heart disease. So I'm fairly athletic, but I do have limitations due to the fact that I've accumulated a certain number of injuries, certain types of arthritis along the way. So when I go down to do the mountain climb exercise, because I have performed it and I don't do it now because it doesn't feel right and it hurts my joints. Yes, it may stimulate my cardiovascular system, it may stimulate my respiratory system, it may stimulate my muscular system, but it agitates and aggravates my joint system and my skeletal system, because when I'm on the ground in that position for long periods of time, move my legs up and down, and all my weight on the shoulders, that I already have shoulder tendonitis and shoulder tendinopathy, and I've had shoulder impingement and a lot of wear and tear in the joints, then after a while that feels really agitated, because my arm's in this position, which is abduction and medial rotation, and that's the position of impingement, where I impinge the supraspinatus tendon, one of the rotator cuff tendons. It sits underneath the acromion process, and the head of the humerus comes up and grinds that tendon back and forth, and I have to sustain that for a period of time. I find that agitating on my shoulder joint, and I already have enough agitation, aggravation and wear and tear on the shoulder joint to do that exercise. So it doesn't feel comfortable for me, and if it doesn't feel comfortable for me, then I guarantee it's not going to feel comfortable for someone who's not as strong as me or as athletic as me or out of shape. You know, you put someone who is, a belly or, they're 10, 20, 30 kilograms overweight, and you put that on their shoulders in that position, they're probably not going to feel very comfortable doing it either, and they're not going to have the level of fitness or strength or that I have. Not that I'm any superhero, but I am better than the average Joe or Jane. So if I'm feeling it, then they're certainly feeling it. If I feel uncomfortable and awkward, they're certainly feeling it awkward and uncomfortable. The other joint to look at is when I'm down there and I'm bringing my knee out to the side, that to me aggravates my lower back. Now, if I was a young 18-year-old, which I was many decades ago, then this exercise would be easy for me. Doesn't mean it's right, it's just that I didn't have the wear and tear and the aggravation and the degeneration of the joints, because I had fresh joints of rubber and strength and flexibility. That doesn't mean it's right because you don't get any symptoms from it. It just means that you're not feeling the symptoms yet. If you keep doing it, then maybe you got to feel the symptoms. You know, when I'm sick, I remember when I was very young, I tried out, you know, smoking, as most teenagers do, just to check it out. And yes, I could smoke, and it didn't give me lung cancer. But if I smoked for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, the chances of lung cancer will increase over a period of time. So it's a slow degeneration of the lungs that causes the cancer. It's a slow degeneration of the joint that will cause the osteoarthritis that could lead to rheumatoid arthritis. So when I'm young, I could do this, but when I'm at my age, when I'm moving my knee out to the side, what I get is my pelvis starts to laterally flex, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and that in itself creates a bit of aggravation in my lower back, and particularly my SI joint, sacroiliac joints, which I'm more prone for injury and aggravation. So going in that position with my knees going out to the side, so I have aggravation in the shoulder, aggravation in the lower back, I feel that very awkward. And then I have to sustain the core, which is great, nothing wrong with that. However, I'm sustaining it in a position on the ground, where really I need to sustain the core in the position, in the upright position, and that feels awkward, and the load goes directly perpendicular through my vertebral column. That can cause shearing forces between the inner vertebral joints, because I've got the resistance going down, which is gravity, and my back's this way with all my vertebrae this way, so the line of load is going across each inner vertebral joint. That may aggravate my lower back as well, considering that the lower back, yes, particularly L4, L5, L5, S1, is the #1 injured site in people, let alone people of vintage like myself, or people who are out of shape. So now you've got three moving parts: lower back, sacroiliac joint for myself, and the shoulder joint, and you're in this awkward position on the ground. Plus, a lot of people, when they do it, their arms are straight, their head's down, they stick their bum up in the air, their technique is formed, their head's below their heart, which is not good for cardiovascular strain, and it's just awkward because your head's there, and the people come up and their face is red because all their blood's going to there, and you just look at it, and very few people do it in a very comfortable, pleasant way. So from a safety point of view, yes, there's lots of question marks there. I don't touch it because I can't justify it, purely from common sense and a safety point of view. Now if we get to the next step, which is it functional? Is the mountain climbers a functional exercise? Is it specific to daily life activities? Is it specific to a sport? Well, is it specific to mountain climbing? Well, it's not even specific to mountain climbing, even though the name of the exercise is mountain climbers, because when I see mountain climbers go up a cliff, they're not on the floor, they're not horizontal, they're on a slight strong incline, if not vertical, going upright, pulling themselves up, and they use their arms to pull and their legs to push and their arms to pull, like lots of individual chin-ups and with a pronated grip, and a lot of individual single leg squats where you're pushing up. Where if you're laying on the ground, you're not pulling with your arms because there's nothing to pull on, and you're not actually pushing with your legs because there's nothing to push against. You're just lifting your knee up, and stabilizing your arms. So that in itself has no relation from a biomechanical and anatomical, physiological point of view to mountain climbing. Not that people do that exercise through mountain climbing. Is it related to daily life activities? Well, I've been on this planet a long time, and I've never walked around and see people walking around on the ground like that. I've never seen people do that. As I'm going to go over there, and they get on the ground and they crawl like a lizard. Well, you're not a lizard, you're not a crab, you're not a snake. So why do we put ourselves in the same position of four-legged animals on the ground and say, hey, this is a great exercise? Because is it functional? What part of life do you do that? in sport, what part of your life to do that? Now you could stretch and say, hey, well maybe it's great for jiu-jitsu or wrestling or judo. Well, that's okay. I've been doing judo since I was 10 years of age, and I'm a competitor in that sport as well. I've won many national championships in my younger years. So yes, I know judo and mountain climbing has no relation to judo. Yes, we do certain exercises in judo, but we don't tend to do mountain climbers. Maybe some people are doing it now because now it's trendy, but there's far better exercises you can do in judo or jiu-jitsu or wrestling, any ground combat or ground type sport. I certainly don't see people playing tennis in that position. I don't see them playing golf in that position. I don't see them running in that position. So from a functional point of view, the body position is incorrect, because we're Homo sapiens, so we move and groove, hop, jump, run, step in the upright position on two legs, not like a four-legged animal, like a lizard, on the ground. So from a functional point of view, it's not functional, it's not specific to daily life activities, it's not even specific to sporting activities. You could stretch it and try to stretch it to the floor of ground grappling type sports, but I would very much argue there are far better things you can be doing than doing that, and they're certainly not related to mountain climbing. So from a functional point of view, it would get a very low score. So from a common sense, low score. Safety, low score. It's not dramatically unsafe, but if you do that for a while, it's going to eventually wear out the joints, and because it's just an awkward position. From a functional point of view, nah, low score. How about a benefit? Is there a benefit? Well, how do you measure that benefit? Are you training for strength? Well, from a strength point of view, it's not a really great way to. What are you trying to strengthen? Your arms are straight, they're not moving, you're not even doing push-ups, and your legs are just lifting the knee up, and it's just awkward trying to hold yourself in that position. So it's not very beneficial from a strength point of view, because you're not really targeting your legs or your arms. You're not really targeting your back or your chest. You're sort of in this awkward position, in the prone position on your hands on the ground, lifting your knees up, trying to stabilize yourself. So it's not really a great strength exercise, it's not really a great cardiovascular exercise. You sort of get a little bit tired from the awkwardness of stabilizing yourself in that position. But from a cardiovascular point of view, yes, you can't really sustain it for a long period of time. From what else would be stability? Well, what are you trying to stabilise? Well, you don't stabilise your legs as they're sticking in the air. Stabilise your shoulders in that position. But what for? Why do you need stability in that position doing that movement? So it's not really a functional stability exercise. Is it good for stability? Well, yes, if you do it like any exercise, if you do it really well, it's going to work all your stabilising muscles doing the wrong movement in the wrong position. Isn't that interesting? Yes, it's great for the core, doing the exercise in the wrong position. Yeah, in the wrong position, in the wrong movement, because those position and the movements aren't really related to the stability of the body in the upright position. Because where do we need stability? We need the upright position, using my legs and my arms while stabilising my pelvis to maintain it into a slightly anterior tilted position, stabilising my lumbar spine and my vertebral column to maintain its natural curvature, while I stabilise my upper body and my scapula. So I've basically got to stabilise the girdles, being the pelvis and the scapula, which is attached to the torso, right, or the axial system, to stabilise that, what people would call the core, to use my arms and legs in what position? Yes, the upright position. So yes, any exercise will require stability, but why would you pick a really awkward, dysfunctional, unsafe, uncomfortable exercise to promote stability in the wrong position, doing the wrong movement? That's not really related to anything except that, hey, your instructor or trainer says, hey, let's go and do some mountain climbing exercise, and you get to say, hey, that's really tiring. Oh yeah, well look, if I do spins on my head with and spin around on my head, that's going to be tiring too. There's lots of things I can do that's going to be tiring, and they'll make me tired, but they're going to make me tired doing an unsafe exercise in an inappropriate manner, doing the wrong movements in the wrong position. That will make me tired by all means, but the tired has to be specifically attached to a desired outcome. And the next question is there a better choice? Is there a better exercise that you can do? So if you're doing cardiovascular, naturally the better exercise you'll be doing exercise that really focuses on your cardiovascular. That might be, the best parts of the body to use to get your cardiovascular fitness up, get your heart rate up and your blood pumping is using your legs, because your legs contain well over 60% of your muscle mass, or the engine in the body. So doing running, or there used to be a mountain climbing machine where you go upright like so, and that is quite beneficial because now you're pushing with your legs and using your arms together, and you're using all the engine in the body in a more of an upright position. So if you're training for cardiovascular, you might be better off doing running or biking or rowing or proper mountain climbing on a proper machine. That would be a better form of exercise if you're developing cardiovascular fitness. Or it might be, if you're in cardiovascular fitness, boxing, then do the boxing. If you want to develop strength to the better capacity, then you might be better off doing good strength training exercises, whether it be relative strength exercises like chin-ups and push-ups and squats and lunges. And when your body weight's not heavy enough to stimulate the muscles enough to take you to the next level of strength, which you may need depending on what you want it for, then you may start to do some overload training such as weight training. And if you're doing flexibility training, you might be better off to do some flexibility training. And if you want stability training, you better how about do stability training relative to an exercise that is put you in the position, and with the body movements are going to make you stable for that position. So if I want to get stable climbing mountains, go and climb a mountain. If I want to get stable doing boxing, then you're better off doing boxing against the bag. If I want to get more stable kicking a ball, then kick a ball and focus on the technique and the execution. And then these other supplementary exercises that complement that will make you better at that sport or that lifestyle or that activity, depending on what you're training for. So from a mountain climbing point of view, mountain climb exercises, number one, does it sort of attach into the goal? Well, it doesn't make a lot of common sense. There's a lot of common sense there when you look at the movement and whatever your goal is, whether it be strength or cardiovascular or weight loss or sport, there's not really, it doesn't even look right. Number two, is it safe? Well, a low score on that one too. Number three, is it functional? A low score on that too. Number four, is there a benefit? Yes, there is some benefits, a little bit of everything, but not a lot of anything. So you're trying to get a little bit of everything, not a lot of anything, in the wrong position, doing the wrong movement. That won't necessarily be the best use of your time. So there is a benefit to it because it does create a physiological response, but the side effects of safety and common sense and functionality don't weigh up. And then is there a better choice of exercise? Absolutely. Maybe get in the upright position, because that's where us Homo sapiens live. We walk, run, jump in the upright position and leave the ground for the lizards. And see you in the next KMAX. I'll be on top of the mountain.